Welcome to the Impact Effect podcast. We're here for another amazing week to talk about how business owners, entrepreneurs, and community members are making such an impact in the world today. And we have an amazing guest, an amazing guest for so many reasons. And we're going to dive into that today. So please help me welcome Angelitta Springer. All right. So Angelita, we start off the podcast, we ask everybody the same question. How do you show up in the world and provide impact today?
I listen. So, you know how you have a software that you love, that you use all the time, and a feature comes out. That's not what you asked for. And they're like, look at this new update, and it's like, no one asked for that.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted this, right? It's kind of like when you get a new iPhone and then they change the charger. I didn't ask for you to change the charger, right? But it's one of those things where sometimes people will deliver a product or a service that they feel will make an impact, but they fail to listen to see what the community actually needs.
Wow.
So what makes my approach to the world unique is I take the time to listen to the cries of the community and figure out how I can service it either personally or professionally through my business.
I love that. Obviously, of course, because you talked about community, but listening is such a powerful skill. Where did you learn that from? Where did you learn that listen first before you create or dive down a rabbit hole with a client and give them something they don't want?
I will say my dad. My dad is very quiet and very observant. And going into my later teen years, college years, I spent a lot of time with him. And I noticed that in a room full of people, he's the quietest one. He will listen and he won't respond unless you specifically ask him a question. And one day I asked him the psychology around that approach as to why is he not as conversational as most people I know. And he mentioned that he actually studied child psychology. And he stated that my job isn't to create your path for you. My job is to allow you to walk your own destiny and be there to support you in case you ever need assistance, in case you ever need words of encouragement, or in case you just need a helping hand. That's my role. And so in my approach to business, every business is different. Every business is unique. And even if the industry is the same, my job is to listen to the client's individual needs and what they want to do and what service they want to bring to the community, and then tailor my services to that approach, not to control how they move, but in order to give them the space to unfold in their natural way.
Whew, that was profound. Actually, brilliant is what it was. It was brilliant. We move in such a fast societal way, right? And technology is booming and all these things are moving so quick. And just the art of subtle listening and analyzation and, taking in that information in order to come back and help or assist is just such a profound skill. That being said, I want to talk a little bit about the uniqueness around your clients, because you had mentioned your clients, you listen to them, and then you create a solution or an offer. So can you tell us a little bit about an experience with a client where maybe before you learned this lesson, you might have gone in and said, you need this, or I can help you with this, but you've listened and was able to customize or provide a specific strategic solution?
Absolutely. So when it comes to the end of the year tax filing, right, I knew just through my experience as a W-2 employee that I filled out a form that I gave to the IRS. The form is a very standard template. But what I learned in my business is that form, that front cover page that everyone's used to seeing that says your gross income, whatever deductions, child deductions, and you sign at the bottom, right? That is the cover sheet. Look at that as the cover sheet. But as you go into different businesses, industries, etc., there is multiple pages that make up the numbers on that cover sheet. So what I had to learn is that for every industry, the tax forms that they have to fill out is different. Even if they change their entity type from LLC to S Corp, the forms are completely different. And it wasn't until my clients were going into filing their taxes and I was looking at their tax forms that I was like, wait, these forms are different, notably with real estate, right? So with real estate, when it comes to your mortgage payments, those aren't written off, right? So that's not an expense that goes on the balance sheet, but the interest is. So learning to manipulate income and expenses differently per the industries in order to make sure they have a more seamless tax preparation experience was something that I had to learn over time. So now I have several CPA partners that love working with me. I can submit their reports, their financial statements, and the CPA can get their taxes done in a matter of days because I customize their financial statements to match the forms that they're going to file at the end of the year to make it easy for the CPA, make sure they get all the deductions. And so we're not just looking at the reports from a standard, income expenses, but we're looking at it from a tax strategy throughout the entire year. And then they have confidence in what their numbers are and what their estimated tax payments may be. So that was something I had to learn is every industry, every entity type, the tax forms are different. So I have to customize my books to match it.
Makes so much sense. So much sense. A lot of customization in your field, for sure. You mentioned LLC to S Corp. Tell us a little bit about that because it seems to be like a buzz lately, right? Like, well, we're here and we need to go to S Corp to save all this money and make all this extra money and not pay these taxes. But is that the truth around the difference among LLC and S Corp?
That is a common misconception is that if you transition to an S corporation, that you will pay less in taxes. That is not necessarily true. If you are a single member LLC or a single member corporation, at the end of the day, you're taxed on the profit. Now, what people misunderstand is if I am an S corporation and then I'm an employee, now I can write that off to lower my profit, which is true. However, when you're paying yourself as an S corporation, you're on payroll. And when you're on payroll, what comes out every paycheck? Payroll taxes.
Yep.
So essentially, you're front loading the taxes that you will end up having to pay at the end of the year. So if you only look at it from a strategy of switching from a profit tax to just getting paid on payroll, you're paying taxes ahead of time. So it is very important to go with a CPA who's going to show you and be able to put the numbers in and tell you the difference in taxes that you would pay if you switch. But understand that if you're going to be a corporation, there has to be a strategy behind it. Don't do it blindly. What are you going to do with that corporation that's different? Are you going to use the W-2 income to then go and buy a property, an asset that can then be a depreciation that really lowers your tax bill, right? Because some companies, even if you're a profitable business, they want a W-2. So sometimes they use a W-2 just to make it easier to buy assets, not necessarily because they want to save money on taxes, because they know they're paying taxes on the front end. So there has to be a strategy behind switching to a corporation. Otherwise, you're going to pay more money in taxes than you anticipated. The other thing people don't realize is with a corporation, your tax bill now increases. So sometimes a tax preparer will advise a client to switch to a corporation just so that they have to pay more to file their taxes at the end of the year.
So the CPA is making more money.
They're making more money because now there's an additional form they have to file. You have to file your S corporation tax form, which also includes what's on your profit and loss and your balance sheet. Whereas with an LLC, you're only reporting what's on your P&L.
Yeah.
So now you have to report what's on your balance sheet. So it's an extra form. So now the costs have increased.
Gotcha. So the strategy, if you're thinking about moving your LLC to an S Corp, the strategy is to get with that CPA and show a real-time understanding of taxes for the year in total for an LLC and an S Corp. So you can actually understand it and look at it and make sure it's less, if the only reason you're doing it is to pay less in taxes.
Absolutely. Challenge your CPA to provide you with a split test, just like you would with media.
Yep.
Right? You're going to run two versions of the same ad to see which one gets you more engagement.
Yep.
Ask your CPA to do a split test with your taxes. Say, what would the bill be if I filed as an LLC? What will the bill be if I filed as an S corporation? And challenge them to give you those numbers. They should be able to plug it in and show you what the cost difference is. If they cannot do that, I would suggest going to someone else.
It makes so much sense. But not knowing, we don't know what we don't know.
Yes.
You know, and it has been a buzzword, and I appreciate you diving so deep into it and explaining it, because I've just been hearing it a lot, right, in multiple different industries, whether it is real estate, whether it is, a service-based company, e-commerce. I'm like, how does this make sense? How do you, but I also understand it on the back end of if you need to become a W-2 employee for your own company, which would help you get a mortgage for a house or a property or something like that. So it makes total sense. That being said, a lot of, back on the buzzwords, or a lot of questions that I see, especially in impact effect community, is what can you write off? What can you not write off? So is there any suggestions or anything that you've noticed a lot of your customers aren't educated on, or they're missing? Like, what's some common things that some people just might not know?
What to write off is probably the number one question that I get. I actually had a client ask me that before the meeting today. What exactly can I write off? And the answer to that is almost anything, which is one of the benefits of being an LLC. You can write off your home office. You can write off your vehicle mileage. You can write off any advertisement costs that you use to advertise the business. That includes sponsorships, right? So if you have a child that has a little league team and you want to buy uniforms for the team in exchange for them putting your logo on a uniform, that's now considered a sponsorship. Your business card. So advertisement is one. Vehicle expenses is another. People do not capture their vehicle expenses enough. The third one I would say is home office expenses. So with home office, you can write off a percentage of your rent or mortgage, utilities, cable, water, insurance. If you have a mortgage, your interest that you're paying on your mortgage insurance, a percentage of that can be written off based off of the percentage of the home office compared to the total square footage of the home. And that is a common deduction that most people do not take advantage of. So my job as a bookkeeper is at the end of the year, ask those questions. I know you're riding around a vehicle to go to these meetings. I know you have a home office that you dedicate to running the business. Let's grab those expenses and add those expenses to the business so that you can write those off safely and confidently at the end of the year. Another thing that people don't know is a write-off is continuous education. So if you are looking to find ways to learn more about your specific business or industry or grow a skill, those can be written off as continuous education expenses, as they are helping you grow and scale your business and service your customer more.
Impact effect community.
Yes.
Write it off, folks.
Write it off.
Write it off.
Yes.
The conferences, the events, the dinners, this is all continuing education for your business and you as an entrepreneur. So thank you for that. Thank you. Such a great reminder. You know, there was a couple years ago where I spent a lot of money in learning and educating myself around my business. And one of the biggest reasons for expensing such a high dollar value was because it did drop me into a lower tier bucket, which was amazing because I paid less in taxes. So if you're at that point, and you know, we always have a conference at the end of the year for that reason.
Yes.
For that reason,
Yes.
right? As you're getting into October, into Q4, Impact Effect annual conference is there, so you can start having those conversations. And in turn, you should come anyway, so you can meet the best bookkeeper in the business, Angelita Springer, because she's there and she's a supporter as well.
So let's walk through that example of I'm attending a conference. What can I write off? So you can write off the ticket to the conference. You can write off the flight or the transportation to and from the conference. You can write off your hotel expenses. You can write off any rental car that you might have used if you're out of town. Most people don't know this, but you can also write off the dry cleaning that you do in that city, not before you go to the conference, but if you're in the city and you're getting your suit dry cleaned, you can write off the dry cleaning. Any Wi-Fi expenses, you can write those off. You can write off meals before, during, and after the conference. So if it's the same day of the conference and you go out to eat afterwards, you can write off that meal. Now, here's another trick that most people do not know. In order for a travel to be qualified as a business travel, only 50%, 51% of the travel has to be spent doing business. Meaning, if the conference is a 2-day conference, you can travel up to 3 days and it still be a write-off.
Wow.
So you can have an extra free day. You do not have to travel the exact days of the conference. You can get there a day before or you can stay a day later and that still can be written off.
Wow. Wow. That's powerful because a lot of people will travel, and me myself, I'll stay an extra day so I can see the city and do some tourism, or I usually like to line up one-on-ones from the
Yes.
conference the next day or grab
Absolutely.
coffee, things like that, people that are local, and you can write that off.
Yes, you can write that off.
Wow. Wow. I'm gonna pay a little bit less in taxes this year. I like that. I like that. So all that to be said, tell us some stories. Like, you must see so many different clients, different situations, scenarios. Can you share a story of how you've helped a client in need and maybe have saved them so much money because they haven't, or they weren't aware of some of these things?
Absolutely. I had one client that was generating $250,000 a year. However, because they didn't want to pay an excessive amount on taxes, they were trying to show a lower income reported. Well, the issue with that is that when they tried to get loans or funding or credit, they are telling them, according to your tax returns, you don't make enough money. But there was just that fear that if they reported all their income, they would have to pay a lot of taxes. So just for perspective, if someone's making $250,000, the estimated tax bill would be between $50,000 to $60,000. However, due to being able to identify write-offs for the business, not just business expenses, but they had purchased a vehicle, so adding the vehicle and then adding the depreciation costs. This business was a traveling business, so we was able to write off $12,000 in mileage because they kept the mileage log, and we was able to separate the business miles from the personal miles and write off $12,000 just in mileage.
Wow.
At the end, that $60,000 tax bill went down to $14,000. So we saved them about $45,000 in taxes just by making sure we captured the business expenses they had and then reporting that to where it was easy for the IRS to accept the tax returns.
That's insane.
Yes.
Like that is the power of you're one person away, one relationship away, one conversation away from drastic change in your life, right?
Yes.
Like saving $45,000 that goes back into your pocket because you met Angelita, because you got in the right room at the right time or the right conversation. That's amazing. And like it can be that simple in some cases, right? We just
Yes.
don't know, again, what we don't know.
Yes. And to your point, one thing that I find that I'm trying to change, I'm trying to stir up in the industry is I want my clients to capture the most amount of tax deductions that they can in order to lower their tax bill. But my goal is to still show a profit so that you don't look poor, right? So we want to show we don't having a profit is powerful, right? Now, what that profit number is determines your tax bill, but there's so many opportunities that I notice are lost with individuals because they're so focused on getting a negative profit. And one thing I want to teach business owners about is how to take that profit and invest those funds so that the residual income that you're going to retire off of is not taxed. Do not allow your temporary business to get in the way of your long-term retirement investments. Those are the things you need to focus on making sure it isn't taxed, not just your business income.
That's such a great point. Like such a great point. Because I remember in a few of my businesses, the goal was just get to zero, get to negative, right? But what that doesn't allow you to do is show a trailing 12 to potentially get an SBA loan,
Yes.
to potentially go into a round of investing with some of those profits, whether it's investing in a tech solution for my company. Like I wasn't allowed because the trailing 12 didn't show we were a successful company.
Yes.
Which in turn would have gave multiple benefits back to me at no cost because I could put in money to help further this tech opportunity. Mm-hmm. But they didn't want it from individual investors.
Yeah.
They wanted it to come through an LLC in true partnership.
Yes.
So it's just interesting when you think about that because myself growing up in the entrepreneurial community and the folks that I was around, everybody said, get that thing down as low as possible. But what if my growth plan in year 2 or year 3 or even year 5 is to buy a massive amount of equipment or to, have a commercial building and own my own space? Well, if you're trailing 12, trailing 24 months on your P&L are showing loss, you're never going to get a loan.
No.
So your dreams, you could be actually shooting them in your foot and you don't even know you are because you're taking the wrong advice.
Absolutely. Even if you want to get into more finance circles with investors that can give you opportunities such as real estate syndication.
Yep.
Right? Real estate syndication is very popular, as well as using, putting funds into your IRA, HSA accounts, CISA accounts if you have kids, and using the funds in those accounts to then invest into businesses that can give you recurring income.
Yep.
And now that income is tax free because ultimately we want to get to a point where we can retire happily, safely, but we don't want our retirement income tax. And we certainly don't want to work until we're in our 70s or 80s. So taking that profit and recycling it, investing it into accounts that allow you to create residual income tax free, that is the true wealth strategy.
The True Wealth Strategy with Angelita Springer. That's what we got to name this one. This is a great one. So you've multiple savings, strategic write-offs, investing, utilizing certain assets and accounts to reduce your tax, burden or your tax pay. Mm-hmm. What else are you providing your clients? Because you do this in such a unique way, and you're just drastically different than a lot of people in the industry that I've come across the table. What do you do differently?
So my background is actually a little bit different than most accountants. Most accountants have a background in accounting, But I actually have a master's in engineering with a concentration in operations management. And I have almost a decade of experience in supply chain. So in my role as a supply chain manager, there was two things that I learned that every business needs to know, and that is their customer and their numbers. But we also want to be efficient because that's the only way to make sure costs stay at a way that's affordable. So for me, my goal is to coach, and that's one of our values is coaching. So I use the engineering to create amazing technology and systems to make working with me easy, seamless, and efficient. So that is our clarity goal. Our clarity value is making sure that people have real time visibility to their finances so they have clarity to make impactful decisions in the future. The next piece is coaching. So I actually encourage my clients to meet with me once a month, and we sit down and we go over their numbers and we look at their past performance, we look at their future cash flow, and we come up with strategies in order to ensure the longevity of their business. So that ties into our value of coaching. And that's something that's very unique that a lot of bookkeepers and accountants do not offer. The other item that I enjoy is communication. So sometimes people don't feel comfortable going to their accountant. It's like going to the principal's office. Like I'm in trouble every time I have to meet and I have to hide my face in shame of the expenses that I did or the mistakes that I've made. So one value that I've always stuck to from the beginning is communication. So with our monthly bookkeeping sessions, accessibility through our app, we have our own app. My clients are comfortable reaching out to me with any questions, with any concerns, with opportunities that are coming up. I want my clients to feel comfortable keeping me engaged in their business and knowing that they're not going to be judged, but they're going to be rooted for every step of the way. So that energy of having a true partner that's going to encourage you is something that's different. And that is something that I've been told over and over again is what makes me different from others. And that's why I have a very high retention rate with my bookkeeping clients because they enjoy the relationship.
Yeah, relationship first and uh, less taxes and more
And
profitability
more
second.
profitability second. And when they change, I've had businesses start off as single member LLCs to LLCs that are now switching over to C corporations. So I like to be accessible from the early part of their growth all the way to when they turn into these large corporations. And the fact that they could communicate that with me with excitement, knowing that in the background, I'm already going to put a game plan together for them and knowing that I can grow with their business, it creates a peace of mind because with entrepreneurship, there's so much that changes. There's so much that comes and goes. So having that comfort, knowing that you have a reliable bookkeeper in your corner, that gives them a peace of mind that they need to just excel.
Yeah, it's so important. It's so, so important. So you were engineer, went to college, got your master's in engineering, operations. Now you're doing this. Why do you love this so much? Like I
Um,
can see your excitement when you talk about this, when you tell your testimonials, sit the cost savings, but like why are you so excited? Why do you love this?
at first, the reason why I said I loved being a bookkeeper was because I loved helping people. That was the typical answer. But what I realized is that there's been so much healing in this journey for me. Being able to heal other people's relationship with money has healed my relationship with money. Helping people transition from a corporate environment where their identity was their job title to now being able to create a living, breathing entity that truly is a reflection of them has helped me come out of my own shell and not hide behind corporate titles or even the title of a bookkeeper, right? But just saying, I'm Angelita. My name is Angelita, and yet I've been using nicknames for years. I was never comfortable with my own name because Angelita means little angel, and I felt like that was such a burden to carry as a name. But through this business, so many people have been like, "You're such an angel. Thank you for helping me." And it actually made me fall in love with my own name again. To know that I can carry on that mission and that task to communicate a great message to people, to give them encouragement, to give them peace of mind, to give them clarity, to give them hope through these engagements has even helped me fall in love not only with my business but with myself again. So I enjoy this because it's allowed me to heal myself as I'm healing others.
Every episode for Impact Effect, I always say, ooh, that's a full goosebumps moment. Every good episode, that was my full goosebumps moment. I felt it in my whole body. And the reason why is because I can understand that level of value, not only to yourself, but to others, right? We show up, we do things, we do hard things, we work late nights, we're there for each other, we help clients, we help people. Heck, I know you even probably give free advice out that you could charge thousands for, right? But all those things that we do, all that time, those late nights, all those, broken expectations where we wanted to go, but we didn't get there, or it didn't work out. It's all for what you just described, because ultimately, if you're showing up and you're living your dreams, then those dreams are going to come back and fulfill your heart and your soul. And I couldn't agree more, and someone asked me like, hey, every year, how do you figure out like what speakers you want or what your concept's going to be? And I was like, well, I talk to a lot of people and I get feedback, but there also has to be a little bit of what do I need? What do I need in my business, right? Because if I'm getting the right speakers, if I'm getting the right people involved, then there's going to be a benefit for me to have. And in turn, I know where I'm at and the revenues and the season and the scalability, and a lot of folks in the community are a little bit above or a little bit below, right? So if I'm having some of those problems, then most of the time others that are coming into the community and the conference are having similar problems. But ultimately what it taught me also was the fact that I'm not the only one that's having these problems. I'm not the person that needs to look at the mirror and beat myself up because I don't know it, I don't understand it, I don't have a resource, I don't have a contact, I don't have someone helping me. But that's okay, because it's not just me. And the reason why my dream exists to help others and create impact is that exact reason. People need help, and I need help too. It's just such a wonderful circle moment, and I can feel that you're living that as well in your business.
What I love about Impact Effect is that from the very first, I remember the very first event I went to with Impact Effect, it was at, I believe it was the Margaritaville Hotel.
Yep.
And you were so vulnerable in that moment as to why you brought people together to do something different, to create an impact. And at that point, it was more so like networking.
Yep.
And then 2 events in, you changed it completely. And you had guest speakers. And you're like, what is it that these individuals need? How can I truly make an impact on their lives and from their business? And one reason why I continue to show up every year is because you can sense that with Impact, you're leading from your heart and not from your ego. You are teaching and putting on events that people can feel vulnerable with, people can be open with, people can be honest about what they need. And having someone that leads not from their ego, but from a genuine care and curiosity is outstanding. And one of the things that I can absolutely say in regards to your overall message and your overall theme is that you've truly made an impact in and how people are motivated, how people see themselves after each event. After every event, people are like, oh my God, that's so great. And they always talk about what they're going to do the next day.
I love it.
They always talk about, after this event, tonight, I'm going to make a plan to do this.
Yep.
Right? And that is so hard to do. Some people can go to an event and simply feel inspired. But it's rare for people to go into an event and then walk out with an action plan, with a game plan. And then when people ask them, where did you start? Oh, I went to an impact event and I learned this, and then the rest from there.
Yeah.
So I enjoy the engagement, and I enjoy just the motivation that you see and witness in the audience every time I'm at one of your events. Is outstanding.
I'm going to cry on camera. Thanks, Angelita. There's moments, there's days where I need to hear that. And today's one of those. So seriously, thank you. Thank you. And it's what we try to do. But as you know, things are difficult. Things are hard. You know, I share the story often. With the first conference we threw, I made a statement that we would have 4 follow-up live events. And that was a hard 4 months to throw 4 events when I was already in the red, right? And I didn't have a lot of the resources, and I was tired, and we just had Ellie, and we've got all these situations, and I could have backed down. I could have not done it, but we made it through, right? And then we make it through, and then these amazing things happen, and now there's this, we sold out an event in 12 hours the other day. Right? And it's just taking those steps and keep moving forward, but also, to your point, listening, and listening. Exactly how you run your business is such an important key factor to the success, but also the impact. Because if you're not listening, then you're assuming, right? And if you're assuming, there's an opportunity for you to be wrong. And I think that's the biggest lesson of this podcast today. Not only to just use Angelita because she's an ace in the hole, and if you haven't or you don't know about her, I guarantee you that conversation is going to be amazing whether you move forward or not, but also to listen and to focus on the client, focus on the customer, and build to what people need, not make an assumption of what they need. It's so powerful, so powerful.
What is that saying? If you're the smartest person in the room, you're not in the circle, you're in a cage.
Ooh, another goosebump moment. Well, it's so funny because, there was a time where I went to a couple events and I wasn't speaking, but they asked me to speak or to go. And I felt like, oh man, this is awesome. My ego was talking to me. I'm like, they're asking me to get up. And Jim, can you share your example, right? Can you, Jim, can you get up on the whiteboard? And we know, and I'm like, oh, I'm so cool, right? And then I realized the next week I went to an event where I was in a room with 16 people. Everybody was getting paid $25,000 to $35,000 to speak per speaking engagement. The guy running it was getting $50,000 to $60,000 per speaking engagement, and the most I've gotten was $4,000, right? So I'm in this room, and it was one of those moments where I was like, I need to be in this room.
Yes.
Because that felt really good in the moment last week, and I was in my vibe, and I'm like, yeah. But the reality is I was teaching, not learning, and I want to be in rooms where I'm learning. And I think it's an added bonus to be able to teach something, right? Because I also think that value should be given in order for it to be received. So I still want to teach. I still want to have high-level conversations. I still want to be in the room and provide value. But I also don't want to be in the room where it's just me teaching everything, because then I'm not observing and learning. So I love that quote. I think it's so powerful, so powerful. All right, 2 more questions and then we'll wrap up. Why is impact so important to you? Think back about your whole life, as a kid, as a teenager, young adult, where you're at now. Has impact always been important to you, and why is it important today?
Impact is so important to me because through impact, people can see endless possibilities within themselves. It creates a ripple effect that lasts through generations. So my sisters and I have a big age gap. My sisters are almost 2 decades older than me.
Wow.
And so growing up in middle school, I saw my sisters become doctors, lawyers, in a field that was exclusively reserved at that time for white men. And even with doctors, there's some fields where African American doctors make up less than 6% of all doctors. So seeing my sister defy the odds, seeing my other sister as a lawyer go through the Navy to become number 2 in command, that at a young age in middle school made me think any idea of anyone telling me I couldn't do anything, what? Right? I have this example of someone who looks just like me. And so it made it possible for me to get to not allow myself to fall victim to negative self-talk by being able to witness the greatness in other people that are close to me. And so when I went into the corporate role, my opportunities and my ambition was just unmatched. And then one day, a young lady came up to me and she said, I've never seen anyone in your role that was 1, female, 2, African American, and 3, with dreads like me. And she said, because of you, I am going to now work hard, focus, finish school, because I know it's possible for me to be in that seat too. So seeing that come full circle on how what I did impacted her, to now her lead, and now her kids are going to see her do this because she saw me do it, because I saw my sisters do it. People don't realize that when you truly step out and break those barriers, that you are not only changing yourself and evolving, but the people who are witnessing you are so inspired that you're going to spark a fire in them that then their kids are going to see and admire, and it's going to last for generations after you. And that's how we change the world, through impact. There has been so much has changed in the past 100 years. My dad is 76 years old. When he grew up, the schools were segregated. Yeah, they were still segregated schools. Schools were not segregated until he went to college.
That's crazy.
Yes, and that was 76. So imagine what's happened to this country in 100 years through 4 generations. So what you do today, imagine what that's going to do to the world 4 generations from now.
Wow.
And that's what we have to think about. It's not just about the space that we're in, but those who are witnessing us step outside the box and do something different is going to create a movement. So we have to really realize how the impact of the things we do and what we say, how we are literally influencing a generation. It's not just ourselves.
Literally, the probably only reason why I had enough balls to do a TEDx talk is what you're talking about right now. I was scared. I was timid. At that time, I didn't have funds to pay $25,000 to a coach to do it. I almost backed out. I submitted it an hour before the deadline on a park bench before a meeting. And ultimately, I thought about the next generation. Ultimately, I sat there and I thought about, if my daughter's looking over my shoulder, how is this going to impact her future? And is she going to follow her dreams? And the reason why is because I don't believe my parents followed their dreams. You know, if you look back into generations, in my family specifically, I don't have stories like that, right? I don't have a sibling or a cousin that's broke the norm and have gone out and have done the things they wanted and been different and pushed through those barriers. So I think back of my grandfather. My grandfather, he went to Boston College. He built the highways in Massachusetts. Like, he had 10 kids and twins that died at birth. Like, he built this amazing highway and had all these amazing things. I mean, all his kids could have gone to Boston College for free and not one of them went. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, and then you see me fighting and grappling and scraping to go to UMass Boston, a university, a state school, right? And I look back and I'm like, man, my dad could have walked across the street and went to Boston College. Right. And I'm over here fucking fighting and scrapping and selling weed in college to pay for college, right? And there wasn't no financial aid because my parents made money. They just were addicted to drugs, right? So, it's those situations where I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. And it's those generations and those future things that push me today to show up and do the uncomfortable things and to fight through the stressful nights and the stressful days, right? Caitlin and I starting Creative Vibe Marketing. People think we're crazy. They're like, you have a 2.5-month-old son. And you have a 2-year-old. This is chaos. And I'm like, this is exactly what we want to do.
It makes sense.
We want to do it in chaos because chaos should not control your dreams. They may push you off course a little bit. They may delay or extend a completion date, or I wanted to finish this in 2 years or sell this company in 3, but we sold it in 5. I get all that. That's real. That's reality. I can be super optimistic, but there's still realness and truth to timelines and team members and partnerships and all that. But ultimately, am I going to look back on my life and tell my daughter that, the reason why she can't go to college or I can't pay for it is because she was born and your brother was born and we didn't make money for a year or two? Like that's not going to happen. And I am an entrepreneur, and in reality, and just being very vulnerable here, is the last couple of months when I wasn't creating, when I wasn't helping, when I wasn't getting testimonials from clients. At first, I was like, oh, it's a worth thing. I need to work on my self-worth. And I think there's still some of that. I'm still attached to business success. But what it was I wasn't creating impact, which in turn creates worth. So it's not a dollar, it's not a company, it's not a title, but it's actually having a value-driven conversation where I'm showing up, there's human connection, I'm getting deep with people. It's not cotton candy conversations, sweet and a short hit of dopamine and it means nothing and goes nowhere. This is me actually building connections and going deep with people and helping and creating impact and educating and advising. And that's the ripple effect. That's what I need to do. And it doesn't necessarily matter what's going on right now because that's what drives me. That's my goal. So
engagement is validation to what you already know within yourself.
Yep.
But to your point, you have to know it within yourself first. And knowing that the engagement is just a validation of your subconsciousness.
Totally.
But I love what you're doing because I agree. By doing it in the midst of chaos, it goes back to the very first conversation we talked about with my dad, which is now you're going to be more equipped as a parent to guide your daughter in her journey, right?
Yes.
So as she goes through her journey and she experiences those moments of chaos, now you can be there to assist her, still allowing her to move through her journey, but now you've increased your tool belt through something called experience, which is very hard. That's something you can't buy.
Dropping bombs today, Angelita. Let's go. Let's run this back for 4 hours, Joe Rogan style. Come on. Wow. You're 100%. I couldn't agree more. It's brilliant. Well, thank you. Thank you for spending time today. Thank you for being on the Impact Effect podcast. You'll see down in the show notes information about Angelita, her company, all the information you need to connect with her. I would advise you to do that, especially if you own a business, especially if you're an entrepreneur, because she knows her stuff. She helps so many people in our community today, and she's going to give it to you straight, and she's going to tell the truth, and she's going to educate, help you, and she's just accessible. You can pick up the phone, and you can call her. If she doesn't answer, she'll call you back, and that is just unique in the industry itself. So thank you so much again, Angelita, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Impact Effect podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.